All right, we're up. This is the Our Town with Troy by North Alabama's podcast. Jacob Ladner sits before me on a nice day here in the spring. Spring is very, you never know what you're going to get weather-wise, right? A little chill, too much wind.
Especially the last couple of weeks. Yeah. A little snow, a little warm. Yeah.
But so you are an Alabamian through and through, right? You moved around a little bit.
Yeah. Born in Birmingham and lived in North Alabama basically my entire life. So this area for almost 40 years. Yep.
Yeah. So who is this guy? Well, you might recognize him as the former chair of the city council over in Decatur, currently CEO of a company called Thirdmark Capital, graduate of UNA.
That's right.
Well, let's even step back because this plays into your wife, right, Erica?
Yeah.
Erica, right? Mm-hmm. You were at Decatur Heritage Christian Academy?
Yes.
Is that right?
Yep.
And then she went to, remind me?
She went to Covenant Christian in the Shoals, Tuscumbia area, and then UNA is where we met.
Roger that.
My freshman year. Yep.
Okay. So you go to UNA, and naturally, if you're in finance now, you majored in histoy.
That's
I
right.
kind of like how you wrote that to me.
That's right.
It's kind of funny.
Yeah, all my finance friends like to, what'd you major in? And well, naturally, history. Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
He wanted to get that part of the education, right? Before you dive into other subjects.
You know, I had thought really hard about going to law school, and I actually started as an English major. I was never a math guy, and had some advice, hey, history, political science, even English are good for potentially going to law school, and was actually still planning to do that after I graduated, and was about to take the LSAT, was studying to take the LSAT. And had an opportunity to go look at a finance company in Decatur and decided to go that route. So
that's the Interstate Billing services?
Yeah, that's right.
Well, and so real quick, because your dad studied math, right?
He was a math guy. That's right.
Guy. So you didn't get that part of the DNA?
I did not, unfortunately, at all. I guess I had more of my mom's brain. But yeah, my dad, he majored in math and worked in Huntsville his entire career. And missile defense world, of course, being in the Huntsville area. But he was a math guy for sure.
I just have a real quick story. I was just thinking of like your friends growing up. Did you have like that odd friend? I've got two examples of the odd friend that like seemingly was so much more intellectual than the kids he was hanging around with. One was this weatherman in DC. His name's Doug Hammer. He's the chief meteorologist of the NBC. And great athlete, but big nerd. And he would just nerd out all the time on all the teams, football, baseball, basketball. Like, we just couldn't relate to this guy. He was just on a different level.
Yeah, no, I mean, there were those guys, and I was definitely not that. So I, love sports, and then we had those friends that just knew their brains worked a little differently. They were a little bit smarter than all the rest of us, and and most of those do. So I know one in my head went on to be an engineer. But just a hard kind of personally to interact with, but still good friends.
Yeah. Yeah, I had like a sleepover with we were like 8th grade, and there was this kid Clay. We were kind of talking about what we wanted to do, and he's like, "I'm going to major in math and get a PhD in math," and we're like, "What? Like you can do that? Why would you want to do that?"
Right. Yeah. It's going to take a long time to get that PhD in math.
Yeah, exactly. Right. But so then, Interstate Billing Services, but you've also been very involved in the community. We mentioned the city council, but you're still a board member on many of the boards, right, in the area.
Yeah.
And you're at your alum as well, the UNA Foundation. Cook Museum.
Cook Museum, yeah, great organization. Just came on the board there of directors for the museum. Also, they have the Cook's Pest Control side of the business as well, but the museum is about to do a huge expansion, and another $30 to $40 million project there to expand the museum. They recently became got the designation from the governor as the North Alabama STEM Center at the Cook Museum there in Decatur. So that's a huge deal. And as part of that, we'll expand the museum, double the size of it, which will be really cool for the community, for Decatur, for North Alabama, to have that North Alabama STEM Center just right there.
Were you involved with that when you were the chair of the city council and kind of getting the funds and
yeah, absolutely. I'll never forget Brian Cook is the CEO of Cook's Pest Control and Cook Museum, and his wife Leslie, and I've known Brian. He went to Decatur Heritage too, so we were friends as we were going through school. He's a couple years older than me, and I'll never forget they called me and kind of told me, hey, this is what we're going to try to do, this North Alabama STEM Center, and what we need from the city. And I was the president of the city council at the time, is a parking deck, because we're going to take up a parking lot, and and I think within 5 seconds my answer was yes, we'll do that. And so yeah, I got to work with them through that, and then able to come on the board since I've left the city council, and just help kind of guide the organization as they really just have a huge impact in our region and really on kids all across the state. So it's just a great family. It's one of those families in the state that I admire. They give back, just so unselfish and really mission-driven family. And so, just thrilled to be a part of what they're doing at the museum.
Yeah. Is that, I'm sure I've interviewed a lot of nonprofits on here, and at times I feel just rooting for them so hard. If I was independently wealthy, I would just donate to every cause that you hear about, because they all seem to be very good causes. When you were on the first question, I guess, for the Cook Museum expansion, was there opposition anyway that had to be cleared? And let's start with that.
Yeah. I mean, anything a city government does has opposition.
Sure.
Literally, I think if we gave everyone, there's nothing I could think of that someone wouldn't be against. But, that was one of the few things I would say most people were like, hey, this first phase that's been in operation for 10 years has been a success. It's been good for our community. Mm-hmm. Again, very well-respected family that gives back to our community. So very few people. We did, anytime you're using tax dollars to build a parking deck that benefits, in their view, one organization, although what I would say is even if they never expanded and we had a new parking deck, eventually that's going to be good for the whole community. But yeah, very, very few people, but you always have some opposition. But no, our community is a big cheerleader for the Cook Museum.
Was there ever one that was just unanimous and there was no pushback and no opposition in any way? Did that ever happen? Any project?
Not any big project, because even, and I understand it, right? Like it could be a great project, but if it's right next to somebody's neighborhood and they don't want more traffic there or whatever, you're always going to have a few that are against it. Even within the council, we had 5 members of the city council, and I would say very rarely was it a 5-0 vote. Yeah. We had some, but almost always you'd have one or two that just decided to vote no. And, my kind of stance on that always was I'm never going to be mad about another council person's vote because they were elected. They have a vote. If they want to vote differently than me, that's up to them. I mean, I never held it against anybody that they voted yes or no on a certain issue because that's what they were elected to do. So that just is what it is. I found out pretty quickly, you hear about bipartisan, even at the council level, I think I went in thinking, man, it'd be great if we were just all on the same page and, 5-0 and we all, but that really doesn't matter in local politics. What matters is you've got to get 3, if we have 5, you need to get 3 to support it and you can do it. And if you don't, you can't do it and you got to move to the next thing. So yeah, it was very rare for us to have unanimous on the council.
Yeah.
So.
And what seems to be lost now in our society and politics is the ability to respect the vote that, the what do they call that? The dissenting vote or the dissenting vote.
Dissenting, yeah.
So if it's 3-2, can the 2 that didn't say fall in line and respect the majority and move on, right? Rather than pushing back and fighting, and as if like somehow you're going to turn around what's already been voted on.
Yeah, I think one thing I've found is that most of the time there were logical reasons why people voted. I had a logical reason to vote yes in, whatever situation, and the person that voted no did too. And so there needs to be like mutual respect, and you probably do have that more at the local level, and then a little less at the state and a lot less at the federal level, just because we didn't have parties, right? So locally you don't have that party monster kind of pulling at you and forcing these votes to go a certain way. You really could be more of an independent thinker, which I enjoyed. So yeah.
Let me ask you this, and I forgot John Joseph IV out of the
John's awesome.
The East Center, right? The
Best and Brightest and East Center. Yeah,
that's a really cool. He's a great guy.
Awesome. Yeah,
really enjoyed. That was a long time ago I talked to him, but I do keep tabs with him.
Yeah.
Sometimes when I'm in Decatur, I'll stop by the East Center and just catch up. But do you have, so our town, right? And if you've heard me talk about this before, I moved here and I wanted to have it be seen that I was embracing this new area that I lived in, right? Moved from DC. And then really struggled at the beginning with like, well, it's probably going to be community based because I'm only going to do in-person interviews. Is it Huntsville? When you're new here, you don't really know Huntsville, Madison, Decatur, Athens, and I've tried to make it now, let's say North Alabama, so that guests will feel like it's not just a Huntsville thing or a Madison thing. Although at the very beginning, I didn't really know any better, and my logo had said like Huntsville, Alabama. But for those that are on the other side of the river, do you have a chip on your shoulder at times when it comes to Huntsville, Madison, the growth, or even, I know you lived in Athens at one point, but like, where does Jacob kind of reside on that spectrum?
I think for a long time, Decatur did have a chip on our shoulder about everyone else, and just kind of had this introspective look and didn't think regionally. But no, I appreciate what Huntsville has been able to do. Huntsville, as everyone knows, is a federal town. There's some stat that like for every dollar that of tax dollars that go to Washington from Madison County, like nearly $2 comes back to the community. So that's a huge advantage for Huntsville. I mean, it is what it is. There's a lot of federal money that the surrounding communities just don't have that advantage. What I would say is Huntsville has done a very good job over the last 2 decades or longer, probably 30 years of really taking advantage of the advantage they have there. And we've benefited. We get residents. When you look at Decatur every day, there are a lot of our 60,000 residents that are crossing that river to go to Redstone Arsenal and over here. My dad did it his whole career. I mean, we never lived in Huntsville or Madison, and he worked in Huntsville his entire career. And so there's just great advantage when we can work together. We've been able to work with Mayor Battle, Mayor Finley when I was in office in Madison, and just have a really good relationship with those mayors and those city governments where we realize, hey, if we can work together and not fight against each other, we all can win, and that's a good thing. I think that Huntsville's the alpha. I mean, it is the largest city in the state now, and I think we can either fight against that and resent it and try to be a little brother, or we can just be right there with Huntsville and take advantage of their success. So that's what we tried to do in the 5 years I was in office. I think we were successful in kind of leveraging our good relationship with Huntsville city government and Madison's. And we're all going to win because of that, I think. So, like one example would be we really need a third bridge. I mean, that was been a big topic to cross the river into Decatur, and that is not just crucial for Decatur. It's crucial for Decatur for sure because we need some residential growth, and the longer you sit still on 565 waiting to go home, the less likely you are if you work over here to live in Decatur. And so having that third bridge would really help that. but it also helps Huntsville because the workforce that's coming from Morgan County and Lawrence County that they need to be able to cross that river in a good way, in a safe and fast way. So just realizing, hey, these things are mutually beneficial. Let's work together. Let's talk to our federal representatives, our state representatives, and work together as a region. We're a lot stronger in asking for hundreds of millions of dollars to build that third bridge that way. So,
but like growing up, like your high school years, or before you were really kind of into local politics in the city council, did you kind of like have this realization? Like, did you have more of a chip when you're younger, when it's athletics or whatever it is, or Huntsville's in the news too much? What about Decatur?
I don't think so. We kind of had our own. You have Austin, Decatur Heritage over there, and never really. We loved Huntsville because there was some good restaurants, and
gotcha.
got to go. Back when I was a kid, to the Huntsville Stars games and the Huntsville Havoc games and all those things. So, no, I think we appreciated. Hey, we like our small town feel with 60,000 residents, but it's a really short drive over to do some kind of bigger city type things like we have and had in Huntsville to do.
Did you get to see Jordan play?
I went to a game and he was hurt. I remember his arm was in a sling playing for the Barons, and but it was crazy. Like after the game, I mean, the whole stadium was standing by the buses and got to see him walk by, and it was the first time. I wish I remember how old I was. I was probably 8 or 10 years old or something, and being starstruck for the first time because I'm a huge basketball fan. I love basketball, and just seeing the greatest player that's ever played, in my opinion.
Yeah, I agree with you.
Walk by me like 20 feet away. I remember thinking like, I feel weird, and my dad was like, that's called being starstruck, So I remember it. He didn't actually play in the game, but I mean, I was like, we were zooming in on him in the dugout, from the outfield and stuff. So yeah, it was cool.
Did you watch the Connecticut Duke game yesterday?
Oh my gosh!
Oh wow!
The end of that, the Ladner shot back in '94, whatever that was, against Kentucky, and but man, like that was an unbelievable ending, and really. That'll go down as one of the greatest in NCAA tournament history, I think. So,
I was thinking about that. I don't remember how much time was on the clock when Ladner made that shot, right? So for those of you who don't know, right, they had to inbound from the baseline. Guy throws like a baseball pass
to the free throw line.
Ladner catches, turns around, buzzer beater.
Yeah.
I don't think they would have had enough time last night to do that, Duke. But that would have been. Let's say they had 1.9 seconds and they did have time. That wouldn't be crazy if they.
I think they had 0.4, and it's hard.
That's not enough. You can't.
Yeah. But that kid, I mean, just nailing that shot from the logo. I mean, it's just.
Well, the press defense, right, to force the turnover.
Yeah.
Because
if he makes that pass, it's over.
It's over.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, that was cool.
Yeah.
And see, this is what happens when I go on these little tangents and then I forget where I was. But shoot. Oh, it doesn't matter. So you met your wife when she was from the Tuscumbia area in the Shoals, right? And then you meet at UNA.
Yeah.
You worked at the trail course over there, right? The Fighting Joe and the Schoolmaster.
Yeah, that was my college job. Best job I've ever had, actually. Yeah, it was awesome.
Did you work year round?
Yeah. So interestingly, fact about that's Sunbelt Golf, but it's Robert Trent Jones Trail, which is owned by RSA, Retirement Systems of Alabama. It's closed one day a year. Christmas Day. That's it. So Christmas Eve, I worked one day. Shorter days, because the time change and less sunlight. But people every year on Christmas Eve, it might be 2 people, but someone played golf every year on Christmas Eve. So open year round. It was a great job, a lot of fun. Got to meet some people. Like they would have a big MLB. Kind of celebrity. Josh Willingham's from the Shoals played in the majors, and he had some MLB players come play. Bobby Bowden played a lot when his son was coaching at UNA. Terry Bowden was the football coach. So I got to meet some cool people, but man, it was just a great job for a college kid. Yeah. I mean, it was awesome.
So what's missing from the studio? I mentioned this to you before we started recording. I have a wood. It was sitting to your right. This is the state of Alabama. And at some point, I got that because I've played all the trail except for Ross Bridge and the Legislator. Otherwise, I finish like
That's
my
awesome.
buddy and I have done it 4 different trips. Now that I live here, it makes it a little easier, right? But I just yesterday I said, okay, I'm gonna finally. I put the ball. I took the logo balls from each of the sites and put them exactly like according to the map, and I left it at work. I forgot to bring it in.
Man.
Well, it's not really done yet, but I'm like, oh no, and I forgot to like replace it. So
Yeah.
the walls are bare right now, but I love it that much. I collect a logo ball anywhere I've ever played, and with that being special, like really special to me, I played the Grand National the first time in 2010, and then since then just trips to Alabama, and that's like meaningful to me to like collect the balls, but like piece of artwork.
We played. I don't know if this is still the deal for an employee, but we could play any 18 holes on the trail for $10 with a cart.
Oh, really?
And we played them all. Yep, I've played every one, including Ross Bridge, was $10.
Wow,
it was awesome. Yeah, we'd take 4 guys. We could stay in the Marriotts. They have the Marriott as part. $39.99, so there'd be 4 of us, $10 a night, crash in a hotel room, and we'd play as much golf as we could on those off days, especially in the summer when we didn't have school. So yeah, there is no job. It didn't pay as well as for a career, but man, it was a great job for a college kid for sure.
They're basically just how'd you pay for the cart gas?
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I guess you don't have gas. It's
electric.
Right?
Yeah.
But still,
it was awesome.
So tell me about Interstate Billing Services. And so how did that kind of serendipitously fall into your lap?
Yeah, I mean, as most probably career happens, as I was looking to take the LSAT, didn't really know what I wanted to do with my life. My wife at the time, we weren't married, but my now mother-in-law had a connection with Bank Independent, and Bank Independent owned Interstate Billing Service, which they still do. It was owned by Regions prior to Bank Independent. Bank Independent bought it from Regions. And she said, hey, one of my friends works at Bank Independent. They have this opening at this new place they've just bought from Regions. Would you have any interest? And I'm thinking, I don't want to be a banker. I don't want to, but I'll talk to them. And I thought when I went to my first interview that I was applying for the bank. Like I had no clue this factoring company, never heard of that word in my life. But really liked the people that interviewed me, really liked the bank and the culture that they had at the bank, and just kind of people-centric. Really hammered that in the interview process, and thought, let me do this and see what it's like. And I think the biggest deal was, I got a paycheck, and it's like, I can go back to school, but, the paycheck wasn't great, but it was a paycheck. And I was thinking, I like this, and maybe there's a career opportunity here. And, now 15, 16 years later, 17 almost, I'm in the same industry. That's this niche kind of finance, lending industry. And it all started just because of a relationship. And I think that's really how a lot of careers happen. It's just their relationship.
They didn't necessarily, it was kind of entry level. They didn't look at any sort of prereqs. It was
totally entry level. I was a credit analyst, kind of my first year at Interstate Billing. Interstate Billing is nationwide. It's a huge, being in Decatur, it's a big deal. I mean, it's just entry level credit, and learned how to do credit. Our credit is not like a bank. It's not 7 years that you've got to know somebody. Ours is a 45-day repayment, just kind of how the nature of the business. So it's a different credit model. And what happens is bankers or traditional finance folks can't think that way. And so it was probably better that I had never been exposed to this kind of longer term lending that you see in more of a traditional finance or bank environment. And it's just this quick turnover of 30, 45, 60-day credit decisions that have to be made all day, every day. And that's how I learned the business. And I started out in credit for my first year, entry level, and then kind of progressed from there more into business development side. So
these kind of like bridge loans?
Yeah. So what it is, my first year, I think by the end of the first year, I finally figured out what we were doing. I mean, and I'm not the smartest guy, but I'm not the dumbest guy. And I finally clicked. Like, it literally almost took me a year to go, okay, this is what we're doing. But if I was trying to boil it down, what factoring is it's accounts receivable finance. So if I have a product that I've created and it's a widget and I've sold it to Troy, and then most transactions like that, B2B, business to business transactions, are done on term. So you say, hey, I'm going to take those widgets and I'm going to do what I need to do with them, but I'm going to pay you in 45 days or 60 days. Well, that's fine. I've got that money coming, but I've got to go sell to the next person. And for me to be able to, have that inventory, pay my employees, I'm not getting that cash from you to do those things for 60 days. So what factoring does is it comes in and says, you've got this guaranteed receivable that's supposed to be paid in 60 days. We're going to go ahead and pay you for them today, and then collect. That way you can go, buy some inventory and sell to the next guy, pay your employees. And then when it's time to collect from Troy in 60 days, we're going to collect the full amount. So it basically just speeds up cash flow on the accounts receivable side of your balance sheet. It lets you leverage the asset of the accounts receivable. And that's in a nutshell what it is. There's a lot of nuance that you can go through. But there's interesting fact, in Decatur, Alabama, 60,000 residents, little Decatur, over $6 billion will be factored or financed through factoring companies this year.
Wow.
So no one knows that. Several hundred people employed at those three different factoring companies in Decatur, but over $6 billion just out of Decatur will be factored or financed, which is remarkable. There's about 3,500 factoring companies across the country that do that. It's just accounts receivable finance.
Yeah. So help me understand. There's three entities involved in the transaction. There's the B2B. You step in to then provide the cash.
Yeah.
To the company that
created the product or did the service. Yeah.
Okay.
So it's three. It's very similar to a credit card. So if I go to Target and buy whatever and use my Visa is paying Target tomorrow, for that transaction, and then they're going to collect from me, down the road and so but ours is just B2B is the only difference. But it's similar to that. Target's getting their money tomorrow. They're not having to wait for me to pay in 30 days. But so similar to a credit card type transaction, just no card.
Okay.
Yeah.
So then, how is this on? So Thirdmark. That's now. So you get past Interstate Billing. You move up the ranks. I think you were vice president there, right?
Yeah. So kind of through the years, just had a lot of opportunity. Extremely tons of gratitude for just the people at Bank Independent and Interstate Billing. Just poured into me. I really just feel a lot of thankfulness. Never thought I would leave. I mean, I thought I will retire from. I enjoyed going to work. I loved my job. We had 150 or so employees, got to manage, lead a lot of those folks at Interstate Billing, was on the leadership team, and we were doing a lot of great stuff. And just through, just kind of through network and knowing, just friends and people I've known for a long time, just had an opportunity to start Thirdmark and come with three guys that I have just tons of respect for that have had tremendous success in their life and, older than me. And so able to learn a lot from them. Kind of came up with this idea that these factoring companies across the country need capital. They would tell you, every little kind of small factoring guy out there that owns a company would say, I could grow exponentially if I just had access to capital. They need capital to deploy to their clients, customers. And so we thought there might be this an opportunity to do what's basically a syndication, like banks. When they do a huge deal, you'll have 3 or 4 banks that are coming together. There's one lead, but 3 or 4 banks are providing the capital. We thought, hey, there might be an opportunity to do that in this specialty finance, factoring, kind of non-bank lending world where there's a need for capital. And so we didn't know. And of course, I go talk to those 3 guys and they're like, do you think you can pull this off? And my answer was absolutely. And in the back of my mind, I was going, I hope so. I'm going to do my best and see how it goes. But the opportunity to own, obviously, part of the company is kind of a game changer personally. Just and then being around some really quality people that I could just. Sometimes I'm like sitting in the corner as a sponge, just learning. I just feel like I'm really blessed to be around those three guys that are just phenomenal business people that have had tremendous success that I'm getting to work alongside and learn from. So yeah, we launched that and I left Interstate Billing in 2021. I think we started Thirdmark on paper in like January of 22. I mean, we had no name. One thing I will give some advice to anyone who's listening is if you ever start a new company, don't start calling your network of people until you have a name and a website. So I would call and they'd be like, "Oh yeah, that's awesome. We need participation. We need syndications in some of our deals. What's your website?" And we don't have one. So I learned quickly like you need a website before you start selling anything just to be legitimate. But yeah, closed our first deal June 1st of 2022. We're trying to figure out the market for a long time, but have just really been pleased. We've seen a lot of growth. I think we just hit like the $80 million of committed capital funds, over 60 million employed, just in less than 4 years. So it's been great, and just blessed to be a part of that group.
So the other founders, they didn't really want to be the CEO. They wanted to kind of just stay in their niche.
Yeah. So to kind of give a little background and maybe explain the answer to that is they actually started this same group of people and some others started Interstate Billing back in 1984. They were the capital provider back in 84. So before I was born, started Interstate Billing, ended up selling it, had a good exit, and the same group was involved with First American Bank, which everybody in Decatur will know. First American Bank. First American was kind of a community bank here in North Alabama that was very successful. Started a company very similar to Interstate Billing called Corporate Billing inside of First American, and ran it really until sold the bank to Royal Bank of Canada in 2008, the same group that I'm working with. And then in 2018, sold Corporate Billing, the other factoring company, to South State Bank. South State still owns Corporate Billing to this day. So our name Thirdmark is our third mark on the factoring industry. So Interstate Billing, Corporate Billing, and now Thirdmark is kind of where that came from. So
yeah, I wasn't sure if it were like a tertiary market. There was like a third market or something.
It's way simpler than that. Yeah. It's just just the third mark on the factoring industry is kind of where
that's cool.
That name came from. But so those guys have through all those exits and sales have had just really great success. And I think, just we like this industry. They had non-competes. So 2018 sold to South State. They had 5-year non-competes.
Oh, wow.
Kind of like most business people that are successful, they can't just sit still and go to the beach every other week or whatever. So wanted to find, hey, what can we do that doesn't interfere with this non-compete? And so these participations, since we're not directly lending anymore, we're not the actual factoring company, we're lending to factoring companies, it was allowed. So yeah, they wanted to find somebody else to run the day-to-day, and that was me.
So how so does Thirdmark, how do you differentiate? You may have just kind of touched on part of that, but like how are you different than Interstate Billing or others where this is a segment of the market that's not being addressed or whatever?
Yeah, so Interstate Billing and Corporate Billing have actually been our clients at Thirdmark. So they have, let me give you an example. So every company has, like, say, internal disciplines, right? They might say, I don't want to do, these are typically large deals. So they might say, I don't want to do a deal over $5 million. I just don't feel like I should have that much exposure, but they have a client that is hitting 5 million and needs 6 million or 7 million or 8 million. And so what we do is come in and say, hey, we know you don't want that anything over 5 million of exposure. Let us keep that client. We don't want you to lose that whole client. Let us take that extra 2, 3, 4 million of exposure.
Oh, okay.
You still lead the deal. You still have the relationship, but so we've actually done that with both corporate and interstate billing for various reasons. And so it's just a different type of business than they're in. It's just different. So
it's like you're subsidizing or augmenting. If it's a 8 million, 5 million came from them, and you guys are going to pick up the 3 million.
It's our kind of tagline that seems to have resonated is don't limit your growth. So if you have a deal coming through your pipeline that is larger than you want to do, typically what those factoring companies and kind of independent finance people have done is, I can't do that deal. It's too big. Let me refer you to somebody that's larger than me. And what we're saying is, no, you can still do that deal, but let us take that overage so that, you know, you're still comfortable and you're still able to have that client relationship. And we're not going to interfere with that, but we're going to provide you the capital and take the risk that we take as well.
So then the piece that you're responsible, you're also going out and looking for other institutions or banks to kind of underwrite your contribution, or some of it's like almost like private equity or angel, where it's actually coming from you all.
Yeah, both. So we have we started the business with no kind of senior lender or any lender other than our own group. It's a family office that funds Thirdmark primarily, and then we do have a bank line that will help us, you know, scale the business. So our family office basically said, we'll get you to X number, and then when we get over that, we need to find some other form of lending where then we borrow the money and then deploy it, you know, from the bank. So we do have a bank line plus our family office funding. Yeah.
Okay.
What happens a lot of times in this world is we have not much competition of what we're doing specifically, but there's probably 2 or 3 other groups across the country that do exactly what Thirdmark is doing. And they've all raised a fund, right? They'll go private equity, they'll go different family offices or institutional money. Like there's one that the University of Wyoming endowment is invested in. So they'll just go raise a fund and then, you know, kind of do it that way. We haven't taken any outside investment. It's just our own family office, and then we have a bank line. So
yeah. But really what's different about all this is the quick turn, right?
Yeah.
The 30, 45, 60 days, right?
Yeah, I mean, that's where, you know, I think one thing I've learned, and so Skip Thompson is one of our partners. He was the bank president for First American. So he's one of the few people I've seen, even though sometimes it creeps up on him that he's really a banker at heart, is a banker that's kind of learned this specialty finance factoring business. What bankers love and which factors do not care about, bankers love to drive by a piece of dirt or a building or a house and go, that's my collateral. Well, what are you going to do with that collateral if you have to go collect it? You know, can you sell that piece of property? Our collateral is a piece of paper that says this amount of money is due 60 days from now. We think that is way more, and it's been approved for payment from a good payer like a Walmart or a Target or somebody that's credit worthy. We think that is way more valuable than some piece of dirt or a house or that who knows what it's worth when you have to go, use that to repay yourself. So that's the difference, is like this piece of paper that the banker is going, piece of paper is not worth anything, but, but we think that's incredibly valuable.
So for some reason, when I was doing research on this, I went down a different path with factoring when it came to like investments and, like there's companies and you have an index of stocks, mutual funds, whatever. But the term factoring in this case was you're looking at, I guess you're diving deeper into, is the company's profitability, their momentum, their debt, to asset ratios, whatever, versus just kind of the performance of a company over time.
Yeah.
So maybe I'm confused. Like I'm having to detach in a way. Maybe if there's a similar terminology that they're using in the broader investment community of factoring that way, where it's like the research I guess you're doing on, hey, how can I beat the market if I'm looking at 100 different companies using I would say much more granular or specific criteria on whether or not I'm going to invest in them.
Yeah, that may be different terminology in finance. I think another thing that's interesting is a lot of the people in our industry, it's a little different than the way I would think, but we see a lot of people that, hey, if I can get a verified invoice that's going to be paid in 45 or 60 days, I'm lending on that. I don't care what the financial performance of the client is. If that debtor is if it's Walmart and they're saying I'm going to pay this in 60 days, they can be losing money all day. I know I'm going to be repaid. So that's really, there's a lot more art to this type of finance than science, whereas banking is a lot more science than art, really.
1 second. Okay. I don't know what happened there.
You're
good. Okay. Yeah. So then that's on you all for the art form of just assessing whether or not this is a good deal.
Yeah, it's
some of it's gut instinct, it's experience.
That, and we were looking at the deal this morning, and it's you almost put it was a deal in California, and so we're like, we're not going to be able to go out there and review this potential client and the debtors and where it is, and so we're putting this story together based on the information we've gotten in our heads and kind of talking it through. This is probably what we're dealing with. These would be the challenges, but there's a lot more feel and art for sure. And that's something I think through experience that you have to learn, and you need good people around you that have experienced it and can teach, and then you have to experience, and you have bad ones. You have ones that factoring, you don't have a lot of credit risk. It's B2B. Most people want to pay their bills to keep their business open, and it's a fraud. There's a fraud risk to factoring that you've really got to have good controls around. It's been in the news a lot lately, for nerds that dig into the Wall Street Journal and really look. There was a deal called First Brands. It was hundreds of millions of dollars, complete fraud. That's been big in the news, but there were 3 of those in a row that were kind of in the specialty finance world, but people it was private equity folks that didn't know what they were doing, didn't have good systems in place, didn't understand what they were doing, and lost a ton of money, and it was all fraud. So,
have you all sniffed that out? Have you been people attempting to
absolutely
defraud you all?
I have been a part of it was one of the worst few months of my life where we were defrauded, and the reason we found out, the way we found out, is that we got judged on the same day. We saw judgments coming through, like our alert system that we had in place. This is before my time at Thirdmark, or before Thirdmark started, where Bank of America had filed a judgment on this company, Citibank, SoFi. There were 5 or 6 large institutions, which made me feel a little bit better that these big Bank of America, Citigroup had been part of that as well. But it was a fake company, and we had loaned them some money, and so did these other large banks and financial institutions. And you learn. Let me tell you, when Thirdmark, we like to hear the people we're lending to tell us they've gone through those things, because you're never the same as a lender. You've learned your lesson. And we like to hear those stories, and you learn a lot through the kind of the hard ones where you've lost some money, and that's a good lesson learned.
Are you insured then in those kind of cases?
No, there is credit insurance. A lot of our clients will have some credit insurance. There probably is fraud insurance, but what we feel like is our insurance is that we're doing a good job. We had some credit insurance on some deals, but we've never collected. I've never been a part of a collection on credit insurance, but some of our clients will require them if they have a payer that's questionable to maybe get some insurance there. But
so in that case of fraud, you lost money.
Yeah,
got it.
Over $2 million. Wow. Yep.
So do you work from out of an office? You said a family-owned office.
Yeah. So we when you cross the bridge going into Decatur, there's a kind of a house. It looks like a Spanish almost house.
Yeah.
So but that's actually the office we work out of. So
okay,
yeah,
come a little bit closer.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah,
there we go. Yeah.
Yeah, that's that waterfront right there, right? Where I think the Convention and Visitor Bureau's over
there.
there.
They're right next to us. The CVB is kind of over the tracks behind us, back in there. Yeah.
So what's just as a quick tangent, the waterfront, is that still? And I think there's been various plans on creating more restaurants or more access to the river. And stuff.
So down by Ingalls Harbor, so a little bit kind of coming to Decatur and you go west, Ingalls Harbor, there's a Home 2 Suites there. There's the big boat ramp there. Patrick Lawler, who did City Harbor in Guntersville, has a project planned there. That's still on. I shouldn't say fight, but trying to get permitting from TVA has been the holdup, but we are on a good track there. And then the boat harbor as well. And again, everything pretty much on the riverfront requires TVA's approval, and that has been challenging. So those are probably the two areas. The Patrick Lawler development there at Ingalls, I think will happen. It's just, how soon I think as soon as he gets permits from TVA, he's ready to put a shovel in the ground. So
that'd be exciting, right?
It'd be great. I mean, it's something, back many decades ago, what put Decatur on the map was the industry on the river and the jobs that came with that. And, and of course now we wish, all our residents would say, we wish that we had more on the river and utilize the river for restaurants and shopping and residential. And it's easy to look back, but back when those decisions were made to put that industry on the river, it was huge in a positive way. So there's just not many pockets left for us to do much from a retail restaurant standpoint, but we've found a few pockets. It's just whether TVA would allow it or not. So,
I've always wanted to, I don't want to own a boat, but I want to have access to a boat. And I know there's a lot of these boat clubs now that are popping up. And I'm like desperately hoping a boat club will move into like Decatur. So it's, not too far of a drive from here where I live. And you just can kind of like, depending on whatever your monthly subscription you pay for, you get access to a boat once a week or whatever, right?
Even if I owned one, the way to do it is there's the Brickyard there. It's right by Ingalls where they store it for you, dry storage. You call them, hey, I'm coming at 3:00 today. It's sitting there on the dock, gassed up, ready to go, and then you pull it back and they put it back up for you. I mean, that's the way to do it for sure.
Yeah. All right, I got to tell you a funny story.
All right.
I won tickets on the radio for retelling the story, but there was a sports station up in D.C. called the Sports Junkies. They're still on the air 30 years later, but I had to retell it really quickly, not to be like, all right, man, hurry up with it, if you're on a radio still. But in essence, what happened was this guy was trying to sell his boat. He had it in dry dock for probably like 18 months and couldn't get a buyer. Basically had given up on trying to get rid of it. All out of the blue, he gets a call from this couple. They want to check out the boat. So he calls down to the lake. I think it was like February or March. This is up in Virginia. It's on there's like a nuclear power plant. So there's part of the water that's warm and there's a part of the lake that's cold. And his is in the cold part. So he calls and says, hey, can you put the boat in the water for me? Yeah, no problem. And the couple shows up, and he didn't even put life jackets in the boat or anything. Just figured it'd be a quick trip, out on the lake, and hopefully they'll buy the boat. And so he gets out of the no wake zone, goes to open it up, and it just like the water just flooded the engine. And he looks down where the plug is, and the plug is in the cup holder of the boat. So he's like, I'll be right back. He has to jump overboard with the plug it in, get back up. He's freezing. It's February or March, not a great time. And he's like, well, the good news is we're not seeking anymore. And the bad news is it'll be about 45 minutes for the bills, to pump out the water. So then, when they finally resumed, the belts are squeaking. It's it's awful, right? And, they didn't buy the boat. But I told that story on the radio. I practiced and practiced and practiced because it was called Donkeys of the Week, just stupid stuff that happens. And and I won tickets to something.
I've heard so many stories about that, like similar, like the plug was, just it seems like the most basic thing to check. And especially as many times as I've heard as somebody puts a boat in the water and it's not in there, but yeah.
Whose responsibility was that?
Yeah,
right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Well, speaking of, so what makes then factoring and what you all do attractive? Is it lower fees or kind of walk me through if they have choices. It doesn't sound like there's a lot of firms who do what you do.
Yeah, so the factoring, so the interstate billing, corporate billing, not as much the Thirdmark, but that factoring product is very popular in Europe. It's like of small businesses, it's some number like 25% use factoring to finance their business, their operational, their operating accounts, or they do that through factoring, not through traditional bank lending. In the U.S., it's like 1%, so it's less popular. Who utilizes factoring? There's a whole lot of probably answers to that, but primarily fast-growing companies, new companies. It's really non-bankable. Not always. We have had plenty of clients. We had a client that was publicly traded, $1 billion line of credit with Wells Fargo, that they factored and they had their reasons for doing it. But it's traditionally fast-growing, good company that banks just. Fast growth scares banks. New in business scares banks, and that's a good market for a factoring company. There's certain industries, construction being one, medical lending is one that banks won't touch.
Government contractors.
So we had a deal in my career. We've had a deal with government contracting where they were staffing chefs on Navy ships, and we financed that through a factoring relationship. So government contracting is a big one. Oil field, so these in industry again, that's just kind of a roller coaster at times. Banks just they like consistency. And so those type of industries, but it's the primary place that you've seen factoring in the last 30 years kind of own is the transportation or freight, 18-wheeler delivering a product to someone. That has been really the stronghold for factoring. But really all over the place, but it's traditionally just a bank won't lend. So it's actually a little bit of a higher rate because a bank, there's typically a little more risk. Fast growth is a risk. New in business is a risk. Those industries I mentioned, there's additional risk, which means banks don't love it. And so a good success story is a factoring company helps a new or a fast growing business get going, helps their cash flow. They're able to operate. They're able to grow. And there's not debt. There's no debt there because they're leveraged. They're basically selling their accounts receivable to do that. So there's no debt involved.
Yeah.
But they get enough of a track record of success that they graduate to a bank, and so that's when we get paid off, and we're okay with that. That's success. That's we had this young company. They've grown really fast. They've done a good job. We've helped them be successful. We helped them put some disciplines in place to become bankable, and now they're a couple percentage points cheaper on the way that they get their money to operate their business. So that's the typical trajectory of a factoring customer or client.
Yeah. I was just thinking about, there was a weird time where I used to run this program at the CIA, right? So we had all these like teammates, subcontractors, and this is always really frustrating where like we'd have a 5-year contract and then the government would drag their feet and not put out like an extension on time. And so then they say, hey, we promise you it's coming. Like, okay, but we don't have a contract number now. Once it expires, like, oh yeah, it's coming. So then this sometimes will go on for 2 months. And so you're working at risk. So it's one thing to work for the prime company that has hopefully deep pockets and it can pay its employees. Well, now you have these teammate companies who have been doing a good job. And in this case, they've been on the contract for like 15 years.
Yeah.
And then every now and then these periods of time come up and now they can't get payroll loans and such. And if they have 20 people and, so it's really thing as a business owner, you have to anticipate things like this happening. And in one case, I think we had a company that had about $900,000 that they were in, payroll loans because of how long it stretched out, how many people they had on the program. And it's like they were having a hard time with some of their normal creditors. Like, well, because normally you say, hey, well, here's an invoice.
Yeah.
Well, we can't invoice because there's no contract number.
Yeah.
Well, trust us,
Yeah. That scenario is exactly what factoring companies are built for, which is there is a receivable that's due.
Yeah.
That in theory, the government's paying it, whoever, you have a good payer is going to get paid. And so,
Trust us, yeah.
you need that cash to continue to operate your business. You got to pay your folks. You got to buy more product, whatever it is. You've got to have the cash flow. And that's the need that the factoring company fulfills.
Yeah, and I think that goes back to the kind of the art form. Like, let's say they're traditional. Let's say it's just a big bank, and they may not have that ability to. There's so sorry, it doesn't meet our threshold. No more money. Where they come to you and have a conversation. Here's the deal.
Well,
right?
I'm glad banks are like this so that we can exist,
Yeah.
right? But banks have become so spreadsheet check the box, and if you don't check the 6 boxes, you're not getting approved.
Right.
And there's a huge void in the world, the United States markets of these small businesses that are providing great services. They're good companies run by really good people that banks are just not servicing. And so there's this non-bank lending, secondary or non-bank finance that has to fill that. And what you've seen recently, and they're getting better yields. So your bank lending is 7-8% or whatever, and a non-bank lender may be getting 11, 12, 13% on these deals. And so what you've seen recently, until these 3 frauds I mentioned earlier have happened, is in the Wall Street Journal, the New York Times, kind of these big finance news organizations, all of this talk about private equity is just, they're so interested in non-bank lending, and they're raising funds, and they're wanting to do all this stuff, and they're chasing that yield. The problem is they don't know how to do it. Is the art that you've got to learn how to do this factoring in these industries that have not been bankable traditionally. So there's some risk there, but it's been in the news a lot more probably the past 2 or 3 years of these bigger institutions getting into it. So let's talk about how Red Sage is helping you all market and promote. So shout out to Ellen Didier and her folks at Red Sage, Decatur. I loved when I interviewed her because I think Decatur realized maybe I don't know if you had a hand in this, but sometimes when you hire a company. In this case, the city had hired a company out of Birmingham. So that
was that under your watch?
No, that was before I came,
okay,
and then
good.
we hired Ellen. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah. So the whole story there was it didn't go over very well.
A little different was the tagline that fell flat.
And then the city realized, hey, we should hire a Decatur company, and then they turned it into the Positively campaign. Yeah. Positively Decatur, Positively Hiking, Positively whatever. So. Talk about that, the impact that they're having on you.
Yeah, I would say first from the city perspective, you're right. We had I think a problem of just marketing ourselves. We just, again, talked about it earlier. Decatur was just very introspective. We didn't really think like, what are other cities doing that's successful? It's just kind of this. I don't know why, but that's kind of how, in my opinion, one of the reasons I ran for office was we got to change that. Like, we got to do better. And one of those is it's a real business these days. You're trying to attract new residents. You're trying to attract development. You're trying to attract fun things for people to do, new restaurants, and you've got to market yourself. It's just like a business in a lot of ways. And the way you do that is you tell those good stories, those positive stories that, and you've got to control that narrative. You can't let the Decatur Daily or AL.com or our friends at the news channels that they like to talk about some of the negative stories, and there are those, and those need to be reported at times. But we needed to take ownership of the narrative that was being, that we wanted out there about Decatur. And the truth is there's a lot of great things. We've got an amazing wildlife refuge right in the middle of our city, huge, that nobody else has. I mean, right in the middle of our city is a protected, wildlife refuge, Wheeler Wildlife Refuge. We got the river, we got Point Mallard, we got all these outdoor recreation opportunities, ULAs, right? I mean, just so many stories you could go on. And so it's, hey, let's find somebody that appreciates that about Decatur, loves this city. And thankfully, we had a world-class marketing company sitting right there on 2nd Avenue that we could call. And of course, Ellen's been involved civically, I think, as long as I've known her, forever, just volunteering and being a huge cheerleader and promoter. And so who better to help us tell those positive stories than Ellen and her team? And they've done a phenomenal job. So we hired them, I mean, kind of right after I came on the council, probably. I was elected August. We took November of 2020 is when we came into office. So probably in 2021, we hired Ellen to do or Red Sage, led by Ellen, to do the Positively Decatur campaign. And they've been great. Yeah. And then hired her at Thirdmark. Yeah.
Because you had that experience,
right?
Yeah.
I mean, and for us, it was like, part of the Thirdmark business model is we have one employee. I mean, it's no overhead because we're never leading a deal. We're just contributing that capital, and so we're relying on our clients to operate and do the deal well, manage the deal well. The risk is we're not in the day-to-day like we used to be at Interstate Billing and Corporate Billing. The good part is there's no overhead. And so as part of that, we're not going to hire a marketing team to do all that. We outsource it. And Ellen does it all. I mean, they do our website. They helped us come up with the name. They do our colors, our merchandise that we give away at trade shows, all our newsletters, social media postings. They do every single bit of it, and they've been awesome. So,
so they helped you come up with the name Thirdmark.
Yeah, I mean, they did that for free. I think that to try to get our business maybe. But no, Ellen specifically, I mean, she gave us a long list. We knew Capital would probably be in there, and there was a lot of different marks, and I actually need to go revisit that, just the early days of Thirdmark, of what were some of the other options and how probably looking back, like that never would have worked, But I think Stratton, or one of our partners, kind of thought about Third something because it was the third kind of factoring finance company we had in the family office. And then Ellen, I think, said, well, Thirdmark Capital.
Yeah.
And so,
It's funny you say that because I remember when I interviewed her, I asked, well, who came up with the Positively? She's like, I did. I'll have to take credit for that one. Like, oh, well, good job.
Yeah, I'll tell you, man, their team is phenomenal. I mean, I've been impressed, and they're all over the country. Our account rep lives in Buffalo, New York. So cool. She's just done a really good job of attracting good talent and has a real good culture there. That great folks.
Yeah. So where do you want to see it go?
Thirdmark. Yeah, what our office has done in the past is we grow it to a certain point and sell probably a majority interest. So, that's probably the end game. I just don't know. I still don't really know how big the market is. And we've seen a lot of good growth. We Skip Thompson is one of our partners, and learn a lot from Skip. And he's just kind of one of those guys that he's just pretty straightforward and old school. And we were going through kind of end of the year last year, and he said we had this 100 million. We'd like to get to 100 million eventually, not like short term. We want to have sustained, good growth where we're doing good deals, and we don't want to do any bad deals. And so we had gotten, I think maybe end of last year, we were sitting at about 50 million, and so they were just kind of like, hey, it's been a good year. Everybody's doing a good job. And I said, well, Skip, I'm focused just getting us to that 100 million mark. And he kind of paused for a second, looked at me and said, 200 million. So I don't know. We'll see. I don't know if there's a market for 200 million, but I think for us, it's just, we have really great customers. Yeah. And that's really our underwriting, is like, do we trust this group that they're going to do a good job of operating these deals? Because we are totally dependent on them doing a good job operating their deals. We're basically investing in their deals, essentially.
Yeah.
And so, as long as we can come along good partners that are doing a really good job and we can help them be successful, who knows? But it's been great. It's been fun to build something from zero. I mean, I think it's there's obviously the challenges there, but sometimes I was pretty nervous. Like, it took us, from January, we're on paper, we didn't close the first one till June, and I'm going, how long are these guys going to keep me around? If I can't close a deal, but it's gone really well, and we'll see. I'm excited. Yeah. This industry too is it's a small niche all across the country. We have deals in Canada. So we're all over. I mean, the Red Sage did a map for us a couple of weeks ago that showed where every deal we've ever done in the last 4 years. I mean, there's just dots all over the North America, and it's pretty cool to see that. And so, just continuing to be a big part of this industry is important for us too. So kind of be the go-to. Yeah.
Are you at a point where you're being contacted, your name is out there, and you don't have to do a lot of cold calling? Or
so our first conference we went to was right about, I think it was in May of 22. So we had a deal that was about to close June, but we had not actually done any business. Nobody knew who we were. People knew us from our previous, it's the same world, but not Thirdmark. They didn't really know what we were doing. I mean, nobody knew us. And now everybody does. I mean, I'm hosting a panel at that same conference. I was on a panel last year at the same conference, and winning some different thing like industry awards. And so, I mean, we are I think the go-to when it comes to specifically what we do. Again, we have some friends that do. I say friends. They're companies that some people would say are competitors, but they're really our friends, and we do business with them that, we work with, and they'll call us, and we share deals with them as well. So it's just it's kind of an interesting world, the factoring industry. And it's just great to see these people helping these small businesses be successful. That's really important to our country. Kind of the backbone of our economy is these small businesses, and that's what factoring supports.
I think it's that realization that the pie is big, and you're all going to get your slice of the pie. So rather than be like co-opetition, right? Where they're your competitors, but none of you are going to singularly own the market. Yeah,
and one of those was our first deal we closed back in June of 22, and it was a partnership with them. They're our competitor. They are kind of their main person is probably the most well-known person in our industry. She's awesome. I've known her for a long time, and they had a deal they wanted us to come in and partner with them on. And so, you're exactly right. Just it's kind of like that whole Huntsville Decatur kind of discussion too. It's like there's ways for us to all work together. There's a big pie. And we can work together, and everybody wins.
Where was the conference at?
That one was in Boston. That moves around every year. What's coming up in May this year? It'll be in Nashville. Last year was in Palm Springs. It was very hot, but it's really moves all around the country.
Okay, so there's really no one or two particular cities that are kind of known for factoring.
So Texas is big just because that trucking, what I mentioned earlier, really Houston. When I was at Interstate Billing, we had if you kind of put our dots, pins in the map of where we were, there was a lot in Houston. But we were in 46 states.
Wow.
It's really all over. And for Thirdmark, it was kind of odd. We really had a lot of success early on in the Northeast. Still have that, but we've got some California, some Texas, and really all over.
Yeah. For some reason, just the Interstate Billing name just throws me off when I just think of a transactional billing, and maybe that's the way it started.
So it's a long, it would be a whole another podcast, but their product is a little different than the traditional factoring, and but I think the point was Interstate, and then the billing is when they're factoring, they are sending out statements to customers, so they are sending the bill or billing the customer. Yeah,
got that.
Yeah.
So let's anything else you want to talk about on Thirdmark that we haven't covered?
I think that's been good. It's kind of you figured it out in less than 30 minutes, and it took me a full year. So congratulations. But it's just a real niche product that I think for North Alabama, for your podcast listener, just interesting that $6 billion out of Decatur this year will be factored in 3 companies. So,
I was thinking about earlier when you were talking about you got a paycheck, and that was cool. So I would imagine you saw some buddies, or you went to church or somewhere. Like, hey, what are you doing? I don't really know. What do you mean you don't know? Well, who are you working for? I work for Interstate Billing.
Yeah.
I'm a credit analyst.
Yeah. I mean, I probably made something up, but it took me not probably a full year, but I mean, it was probably 8 to 10 months before I could actually explain exactly what we were doing. I mean, I knew what I was doing, but the company as a whole.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like when I met my father-in-law, my future, was I married? I think we were married, and it was our first trip out to Illinois, where she's from, to like spend some time with them. We had we got married in Virginia, but then we had like an open house 5 months later.
Yeah.
And so I was doing my undergrad. I'm like 22 years old, and he's like, "So what are you gonna do?" I'm like, "I'm gonna do international accounting." What does that mean? I don't really know, and I never did international, but I just on the spot, because I still wasn't really sure.
It's like when George Costanza decides he's going to be a marine biologist. Yeah, you just got to say something. Yeah,
that's a great episode.
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's a great episode. All the improvisation on that last scene.
Yes. Yeah.
Right. Well, something that really stood out when I got some of the background on you was this whole Spartan trifecta, and you just hiked the Half Dome at Yosemite. Yeah. And you did an Ironman 70.3.
Half. Yeah.
Okay. First of all, I've done some Spartan. What is the trifecta?
Yeah, so I don't know. Like, I'm a big, is it Joe DeSena did that? I love Joe. They may have changed this. When I did it, they had a Spartan sprint, which is a 5K. They never did tell you the exact, because they want you to, your brain, the mental part of it. And that was the short one. Then they had a super, which was probably 8, maybe a 10K. And then they had a beast, which was a half marathon in theory length. So it's really, if you completed all those in 1 year, you completed the trifecta. Yeah. Okay. Yeah.
Have you ever heard him on Rogan?
Yeah. Oh yeah.
I loved that episode.
Yeah.
When he talked about, you remember when he talked about the mobster that hired him to clean his pool?
Oh yeah.
I've talked about that on this podcast.
And all the extra stuff, you do all these things.
Like, never ask for money.
Yeah.
Make yourself invaluable.
Yep.
Right. And that was just great advice that he got.
He's great. I'm a fan for sure.
Yeah. So then where did you do the triathlon?
The 70.3 was in, I had done a lot of the sprint ones, and just a shout out, the Wet Dog in Decatur. Anyone can do that. It's a sprint triathlon. It is the best entry level triathlon. Literally, I don't know anyone that can't do it. I mean, if you can walk a 5K, you can do it. But it's a great entry. So that was my first experience many, many years ago, and I had done a lot of the sprints and a couple of the Olympic distance. And then three of my good friends decided we wanted to train for a half Ironman, which is Ironman 70.3.
Yeah.
And we did it in Panama City. It was an Ironman sanctioned event. So you swim in the ocean, do your bike.
Florida or the country?
Panama City, Florida.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So we did 1.2 mile swim in the ocean, 56 mile bike, and then a half marathon. Yeah.
The swimming part's
it's my favorite. And it's the least consequential. So like, if you can complete it, like even in the Ironman, which you have professionals that were in the race we were in. We were not professionals, but there were, and like guys being paid to do it and trying to win. Like I think the fastest swimmer was like 22 minutes or 25 minutes, and like the cutoff was an hour. So the dead last swimmer was only 35 minutes behind. Like that's easy to make up on a bike or run. So it kind of hurts me because that's my strength is swimming, and it really matters the least. Like in the Wet Dog, I think the fastest is probably 5 minutes and the slowest is 10. You make
how long minutes. How long did it take you to do that swim?
That one, so a crazy story. So it was the best swim of my life. You're in the ocean, you swim a half mile out, which you don't realize how far a half mile is until you're out there and you see that last buoy when you're standing on the beach and you're like, that's a long way. I mean, we got to the point where there was a cliff, like a shelf in the ocean where, you know, we were probably 20 feet deep and then it dropped to like 150. I mean, wow. Just you couldn't see the bottom. It was so far. I think I did the swim in about 38 minutes or maybe right around 40, but okay. I swallowed. So I had 200 yards left. I had made the turn. So you go half a mile out, 2/10 across parallel the beach and then swim back in. Literally, I was at the last buoy, which is about 200 yards left, done, flying, best swim of my life. And when I would rest to free, I would always do freestyle, and then when I rest, I would do breaststroke. So, you know, under, up, under, up. I came up, and a huge wave hit me right in the face, and I swallowed the water.
Oh, no.
And it was terrible. And I was like, immediately. And so you can hold a buoy. You just can't use it to propel yourself without being disqualified. So I grab a buoy. Like, what do I do? Every time I would put my face down, I felt like I was going to throw up. And so I ended up backstroking from there all the way in. Ended up, I think, 39 minutes. I could not keep any, like, gels. You know, on the bike, you take all these gels. So the bike was complete misery for 56 miles.
Oh, man.
I get back from the bike, transition to start the run, and I was going to quit. Like, I couldn't keep anything down. No liquids. It was 90-something degrees. So I'm looking for the medical tent, and I couldn't find it. Like, I'm walking around the transition area. Like, can someone help me? Like, and I'm sure it was there, but I just never found it. I was like, well, I know there's an aid station at mile 1 on the run. So I start the run. I get to the first aid station. I was able to, like, drink some water, and it was okay. And I just remember, like, I had trained for 6 months, you know, and I'm like, I've got to finish, even though it's terrible. But, so I ended up, I mean, my run time was embarrassing, but I finished. And the second I came across, they put the little thing, you know, my O2 to check my O2, and it was like 88 or something. And they were like, you gotta go to the hospital. So I ended up getting in an ambulance. I have a cool picture. My wife actually was showing it to me, or maybe it was my son, one of them yesterday. We were looking through some old pictures, and I'm in the hospital with all these, you know, they hook all the stuff up to you.
Yeah.
But I've got my medal on, the finisher medal, and the nurse said, we've seen. I said, have you seen a lot of people from the triathlon? She said, we've seen a lot of people. You're the only one that has your medal on. So I was glad I finished. I actually had found out at the hospital there was water in my lungs from when, and so they gave me, I'd aspirated some of the water, and they made me do these breathing treatments, and I actually, like, coughed up water. It was, anyway, I'm really glad I finished it though.
I'm assuming you're burning everywhere from the salt, and then just in your chest. Like,
yeah, I mean, that was what was scaring me in the run, is I couldn't take a deep breath. Like, it was just, like, really hard to breathe. I could breathe shallow. So, I mean, I walked a lot during the run. But I finished within the time, and, you know, it was an experience. I'd like to do another one just to, like, see. Yeah. And I think 2 of those guys that did that with me ended up doing a full Ironman. I don't know if that's in the cards for me, but.
Were you last place of your buddies?
Oh, yeah. And we were, like, I think I was first off the swim. But yeah, I was, of the 4, I was way
Did they
behind.
pass you? And like,
they knew. They knew I was struggling. And so they were actually standing at the finish line. I told them what would happen, because the way the run is, I think it was a 3-mile loop. You did 4 times, and then there was kind of extra mile at the end. So we would see each other a lot. I mean, they knew kind of what had happened, and they were checking on me. So it was awesome though. Like, it's a great story. Yeah.
And did you do the Half Dome hike with them?
It was literally no. So you have to have permits to do that, and you enter a lottery. And so I had won those, like, months before, and it happened to be like 3 weeks after the Ironman.
Oh wow.
And so my cousin, I had 2 permits. My cousin lives in works here in North Alabama, and we flew out to Yosemite, did the Half Dome hike, and it was awesome, man. Yosemite is one of those places that it's hard to appreciate when you're there. Like, it's awesome. Like you're like, man, this is beautiful, and just. But the longer I haven't gone back, it just grows in my mind like that was some other world that you're in, and being able to hike Half Dome, and the cables at the end are pretty wild, and you're straight up. Probably should have clipped in. They give you the option. We didn't. But if you fall, like you're dead. There's no surviving that fall, and people die pretty much every year, I think, on those cables. But it was fun. It was, I would love to do that again, like with my son or something, one day. But it was an experience. My wife was, after the experience at the 70.3, she wasn't real thrilled about me climbing.
Just 3 weeks later,
the face of the rock. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what's the elevation total that you?
I wish I had. I can't. I've got a map actually in my office framed of the exact hike we did. You do it in one day, so it's like it's not that. It's just that it's straight up. So you start in the valley. We started in Yosemite Valley. I mean, dark when we start. We wanted to get up there pretty early. I think it was about 8 miles up, and then you just hike it back down. So 16 miles, but that on the way up it's pretty brutal. I mean, it's just straight up.
Do you have a guide?
No, I mean, when you get to the base of Half Dome is when you show your permit. So you can get all the way to the base with no permit, but to use the cables, you have to. They were getting kind of overcrowded, so they started doing the lottery for that.
Yeah. So Bennett, he's your oldest, right?
Yeah.
Is he like you sports wise? And your wife was also an athlete, right?
Yeah, she played basketball high school. She was tenacious. You don't want to play her now. She just fouls the whole time. And, no free layups.
Hacka Jared.
Oh yeah.
Jacob. Sorry.
Jacob. Yeah. She's competitive. But yeah, my son loves sports. It's funny. Like growing up when he was little. I mean, he liked playing sports, but he was definitely more like out there because his friends were, and he's a cool kid. But no, starting probably 5th, 6th grade, he played soccer, but he's really into basketball, and he's fallen in love with football. So he is all in on football. He's trying to gain weight so he can, be bigger in football. He's lifting weights all the time, and so he loves sports.
He's an Auburn fan like you?
He's big Auburn, but he loves the Philadelphia Eagles. And so I'm a Cowboys fan, which makes it kind of controversial during the season.
How'd you become a Cowboys fan?
Yeah, so my dad, I never saw Calvin Hill play, but my dad loved Calvin Hill. He had a poster, he was a huge Cowboys fan. And then, I mean, it didn't hurt that as I was, 10 years old, they were winning the Super Bowl every year, and I loved Michael Irvin, Troy. Yeah. I mean, it's just kind of the era. And then having my dad be a Cowboys fan is probably why. So it's been really brutal since those 3 Super Bowls. But
I was a Commanders fan, but it's like even worse for them.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
it's cool. I got to see Grant Hill. So Calvin Hill was the receiver right for the Cowboys, and Grant Hill is his son. And it's just too bad all the injuries he had. But I got to see him. I was in 8th grade when Grant was a senior in high school, and we saw him play. They were our crosstown rival.
Oh wow!
And he was a man amongst boys.
Oh yeah. He was calling the Duke game yesterday.
Oh, he was?
He was on the broadcast. Yeah. That's tough. Yeah.
Yeah, he and then when they won their national championship, Grant Hill. I just don't remember a lot of footage of Calvin, but good family.
Yeah.
Kind of reminds me a little bit like Kobe.
Yeah.
I guess Jordan's parents, just good parents, right? Involved. And you have 5. You're the oldest of 5, right?
Yeah. 4 younger siblings. I was an only child for 8 years, and then 4 more came. So
your parents just had this realization, like, we need more kids.
Well, I think they were fairly young when I was born, and my dad was early in his career. So my assumption is like, just kind of let's get out of that stage, and then I was an only child. Life was great, and then 2 came in the next 11 months. So I went from only child to 2 siblings, and then 2 more after. So my youngest sister was born my senior year of high school. Same parents. So I'm 17 years older than her.
Okay.
Yeah. Now she has a child. So yeah.
Oh, that's crazy.
Pretty fun.
That's cool.
Big family. Yeah. And my wife comes from a big family too. So
And she used to be a reporter.
Yeah, she was Channel 31. She was the Shells Bureau reporter. She was a broadcast journalism major, so she actually majored in the thing she decided to work in. But yeah, she enjoyed that job. She was definitely more like to do stories on like puppy dogs and whatever than the murders and the fires and the bad stuff. But she got to cover the last shuttle launch. She and Aaron Dacey got to do that together, which was fun. But she loved it. But once our son was born, that's a very difficult job, I think, to have a young family. You're just kind of on call all the time. And I was working, so ended up she called it a career pretty soon after he was born.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
Well, do you have any final shout outs or?
I don't know about shout outs. No, I enjoyed, man. It's a fun conversation. It goes by quick. And, I hope people, like you said, maybe knew me from one of those experiences and now have a fuller story maybe.
I was thinking, I think when we talked on the phone, I had asked what the longest interview you've ever done. It was like 25 minutes. And I think I need to just have certificates on hand.
Yeah.
Because we're at about an hour and 28.
Yeah.
And be like, this is your personal record, and then see if you ever get break it.
Probably not. Yeah.
Because the crazy thing is we could keep talking for a long time.
Yeah.
And you barely seem to scratch the surface. I do have to mention one thing I did in my research. I found when you were District 5, right?
Yeah. Yep.
When you were sworn in, it's on YouTube and fun things. A lot of little clips, of course, in your time. But I guess it was when your last vote, like your last meeting as the head of city council, and I guess that it was a news report, and they said, yeah, even those that like didn't see eye to eye, and they went to like a quick thing where the lady said, Jacob, goodbye and good riddance. Yeah. And I'm like, wow. Yeah. So I guess you had some history with some of either her or some of the others, right? In the public.
Yeah. We had a couple of tough years. We had an officer involved shooting. There's news on that today, really actually still going on. And, I looking back on that experience, I enjoyed serving on the city council. I think we did a lot of really good things. We can look back. I can drive around the city where, when we first were sworn in 2020, there were no cranes and no bulldozers moving dirt in the city of Decatur, and there had not been in a long time. And there's probably 10 cranes and 30 bulldozers moving dirt around and building stuff in the city today. And I can go point to those things that'll forever be better and different from the 5 years that I served on the council. There were definitely through those hard, we had, a lot of protests and things over the last couple of years, and having to manage that as the president of the council, at the end of the day, whether people disagreed with how I handled things or agreed, and basically there were two sides of that whole thing. And at one time or another, both sides disagreed with me, which I kind of felt like maybe that's good. Like maybe that means so what I try to do is just do the right thing. I'm not trying to placate one against the other or whatever. I'm going to do what I think is right and make the next best decision that I can. And I'm going to make some mistakes. I'm going to own those. And then, just try to keep the city moving forward. So learned a lot. Was certainly better for serving. Needed a break after 5 years, especially after the last two, which is pretty brutal. But, when I made the decision not to run again, I actually got a lot of folks from, both sides of that whole issue that were like, man, we're disappointed to see you go. And it meant a lot to me to hear that from folks that did disagree with me about certain things, but at least felt like I had tried to do what was right. So,
That's all you can ask for.
Yeah.
Well, I appreciate you coming in.
Yeah, absolutely.
And I always love to hear about people's stories, but I love hearing about. I haven't had enough from Athens. Yeah, I've had enough on not enough. I'm sorry, a good amount from Decatur and others, but I want to continue doing that, right? And I do have a lot of people who reach out to me, and that's good, right? Trying to schedule them to come on, but and again, I could go on and on and on. Yeah. Are you a good golfer?
Well, I was really good
You
when I
were?
got to play all the time.
Yeah.
I probably play twice a year now. So
Gotcha.
skip, or another good skipism. I like to tell this story. We closed that deal in June of 22, first deal with Thirdmark, and we actually closed 2 that day. And Skip walked in. He said, "Ladner, good job. If you do about 30 more of those, you can play golf as much as I do." So he is below scratch. So he's really good.
He's playing a lot.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Hey, well, all the best to you. I hope we can do it again. Love to get an update at some point.
Yep.
And again, thanks to Red Sage for setting us up.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. Really enjoyed it, and happy to come back anytime.
All right, man. Take care.
Thanks.